Good evening, Bettany. This is George Misagis.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you very okay. I was telling a few words about you. We are very sorry we are delayed, but because, you know, we the Greeks are in time, not on time, like the English. So we are not so English, we are Greeks. So forgive us, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. How lovely. I'm so sorry that... Hello, hi.
Hi, Bettany, it's Katerina. The floor is definitely yours. But I have questions for you afterwards, but you'll have to start now. And I have questions for you afterwards, though.
Okay, Katerina, that's fantastic. Please, because I'm expecting to do the conversation with you, so start to ask
then we had an introduction by your friend, Mr. Misagis, and we have we believe we know you at this point, actually. And I've actually seen many of your documentaries and your work, and I know that you want to also show the place of the woman in history. Is that true? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
definitely.
I know also that you are fighting for ancient Greek or the classes to be taught in the UK schools. Is that true also? Yeah.
It is true. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You can come here helping us with that also here, because this is an issue. But anyway, you've been everywhere, almost everywhere. And especially when it comes to the Eastern Mediterranean, you've been literally everywhere. And you've studied and you've analyzed life and in the ancient times in every place. I want you to tell us and begin from this point, what is so alluring in Greece? Because we are Greeks, so you can understand. Let's take it from there, because,
Yeah, of course. Delighted to talk about that. And to be honest, if I talk about why the Greeks are alluring, we'll be here for 10 hours, because there'll be no chance that I'll have to stop. But first of all, just to say to everybody here tonight, thank you so much for coming on this beautiful evening, to join together. I'm so sorry I can't be with you in person. There's a good reason, though, in that we're just filming a new series about the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Of course, 2 of which are currently in Greece, and all of which, apart from the Great Pyramid of Giza, are inspired by Hellenic ideas. So I said, I'm so sorry I can't be there physically, but I'm doing hopefully doing a good thing, talking about the value of culture and the inspiration of Hellenic heritage through time. Also, I'm so sorry I can't be with you physically. You all look amazing. I've got to say, Katerina, your dress, everybody's dresses, you Greek ladies put me to shame. I'm still in my filming clothes, but you look incredibly glamorous. So I wish I could be there for that too. But you're absolutely right that I adore Greek culture. I've devoted my life to sharing it with as many people as possible. As was said, I think in the introduction, I work as an academic, but I think it's incredibly important to share these stories through television programs, through videos, so that they reach a really wide audience, so that the next generation also understand about the value of these stories. And I think, to answer your question, why Greece? Why am I drawn to Greece? I think there are 2 very simple answers. One is that when I study Greek history, I never feel alone. I feel that I'm surrounded by these characters and ideas that are so nourishing and nurturing and incredible role models, whether they be mythical or real. So people say, isn't it lonely being a historian because you're dealing with people who have passed and are dead? And I don't feel that. I feel that these are characters who are alive and all around me. And also, to answer your question about my interest in the role of women in history, basically, as a historian, our job is to fill in the gaps. So this is what we should do. We should look back to the story of the past and work out why there seem to be holes, what we can do to add to that with new evidence and with our investigations. And I really noticed that whereas when I was studying the classics and particularly the ancient Greek world, I saw these very, very powerful women, both in the stories and in reality. So, you know, if you look at the women of Bronze Age Greece, they have status and standing. They own their own estates. They can be taxed, which means that they must have had their own income and quite a lot of wealth. As you know, that they can choose whether or not they give their land away to others. So these are, you know, these are really potent creatures. And if you look at the story of, for instance, Aurea Eleni, of Helen of Troy, beautiful Helen of Sparta, there's a clue in that story that all the great heroes of the known world come to fight for her and for her land as the inheritor of the lands of Sparta. So we see these stories that are definitely happening in real historical and archaeological terms, reflected in the myth. And I just felt that the wider world needed to know about this, that it needed to know that, you know, women, like it or not, have always been 50% of the population. And if you look back to Greek stories, often you see these hints of these very powerful women. So it felt like that was a very important thing to include in my programs. And I actually have one of my favourite quotes from the ancient sources is a man called Quintus of Smyrna, who was actually writing his own version of the Iliad and Odyssey stories, obviously inspired originally by Homer, the man of your island, of beautiful CHIOS. And there's a fantastic passage where Quintus of Smyrna writes about an Amazon queen. And this Amazon queen, he puts these words into her mouth. And the Amazon queen says, "In strength, we're not inferior to men. The same are our eyes, our limbs are the same. One common light we see, one air we breathe. So why then is it denied to us what the gods have given men?" And, you know, this was written over 1,700 years ago. It's very inspirational. If any of you know the beautiful plays of Shakespeare and The Merchant of Venice, it's actually basically the speech of Shylock in the Merchant of Venice, the Jewish merchant. But this is something that was written by a Greek, as I said, 1,700 years ago, about an Amazon queen. So I think if we look to these little missing fragments of the human story, we can find really powerful, strong examples of inspiration that are inspiration to me as a, you know, middle-aged mother, and you hope could be very inspirational, therefore, to a younger generation too. So I think it's interesting, but it also has real purpose if you study that missing story of women in the world, and particularly women in ancient Greek culture.
Wow, that was powerful. First of all, so if I understand it well, I mean, what you're trying to do is make mythology, ancient Greece, relevant to today. Is that true?
Yes. I suppose, because by definition it's relevant, because, you know, these are,
you know, something, I don't know, I assume that this happens everywhere, but when we're talking about mythology or ancient Greece or here, we refer to old school books and yes, something which is left on the shelf. So that's why I'm trying to understand. You're trying to make it relevant to the new generation, so and understand how things happened and how we are here today following a
well, definitely. And I think what's very positive is actually the young generation, the new generation, really want to hear these stories, and we know that for a number of reasons. On TikTok, myths are incredibly powerful and very popular. We're thinking that we should actually generate a new thing called Myth Talk, you know, where we talk about the myths, which would be, you know, a great initiative. And I know, for instance, in the US and America, 2 years ago, there was a book that was published called 1,000 Ships by a friend of mine called Natalie Haynes, who was a great classicist as well. And it was the most downloaded audiobook in the whole of America for the month that it was published. And it was a book about the story of Helen of Troy. And you think that, you know, just those commercial facts prove that they're relevant. Even if we didn't need to understand that psychologically, commercially, people are really turning to the myths to help them navigate the modern world. And I think, you know, we all know I'm sitting just about to film one of the Seven Wonders sites. You're sitting in this beautiful place in CHIOS under a beautiful Mediterranean sky, and life is good. But we know that actually the world is very tormented at the moment, and it seems very difficult for people to live in it. But if we go back, if you think about it, if we go back to these ideas that aren't just centuries old, but are thousands of years old, when life was really, really, really tough, I think that's what we have to remember about the age when the myths were born, is that often women were dying at the age of 13 or 14 of childbirth. Men were often dying by the age of 24 or 25. If you look at the archaeological evidence and the skeletons and bones of those warriors, you know, they're constantly being pushed out to fight. And we know that because we see on their bones, on their arms and on their legs and on their chests, arrow wounds where arrows or javelins have been fired at them. They've been patched up and pushed back out to fight. So that's a really tough world to be living in. And so those Greek communities, it really mattered them to work out how to flourish and how to live well, because life was very, very short. So I think, you know, there's a real urgency to their thinking, which makes it incredibly relevant to us now in both good times and bad. So I mean, I suppose you're right. I am trying to not prove that they're relevant, because they are relevant, but to inspire other people to realise how relevant they are. And some of you might know, George, as I said, I'm so sorry not to be on the same floor as you. Next year I will come and be in person. We'll make sure that we arrange the filming so that I can be physically with you. But some of you, I don't know if George mentioned this in his introduction, may know that we made a series about the Odyssey, following the trail of Odysseus. And of course, we had to start in CHIOS because of the wonderful connections with Homer. And in the first scene of this film, I meet George. We have a wonderful dinner together and talk about the value of xenia and guest-host friendship. And it's one of the most popular scenes of any of the films I've ever done. It's been watched by many hundreds of millions of people now. And I think because it basically proves that it is possible to respect and have friends across borders and boundaries and cultures. And it's a scene that we know is shared again and again and again. So these notions, these word ideas, these concepts are of real value, and it's up to, you know, me, people like me, just to make sure that we put it out on the rectangles, the screens that are in everybody's pockets, in everybody's front living rooms, because again, as we know, so much that is negative and destructive comes out of telephone screens and iPads, particularly for youngsters. So it's trying to kind of put an alternative narrative out there.
You have, for all of us actually. One last question, if I may. We saw your daughter earlier in pictures. George showed some pictures, so we saw your daughter. She's now, I don't know, she's older now. But when she was little, when she was a child, from Greek mythology, which myth would you choose to, I don't know, tell her?
To talk to her about. I used to, what a lovely question. I used to talk to her a lot about Gaia, about the goddess Gaia, and about the notion of a sustainable cosmos where we're all connected. So Gaia was a very important character for her. And as we now know, we're really realizing that the truth of the story of Gaia, of the great goddess of the earth, that we're all connected. So I used to tell her those stories. And I love the fact with Gaia, the goddess, one of the first words that are given to her by Hesiod is he says that Gaia, the great Earth Mother, realised that she needed to rid herself of the burden of humanity to survive. And again, you think, this is so clever. You know, this is 2,600, 2,700 years before now, when we're actually understanding about the need for climate sustainability. So I would talk to her a lot about the myth stories of Gaia. And brilliantly, George, I'd love to see the photos that you showed of May. She's now 24. And the first job that she has, she works in filmmaking as a casting assistant on movies. The very first job she got on screen, she was cast to play the goddess Aphrodite, because she looked a little bit like the Botticelli painting of Aphrodite. So she adores Aphrodite. So we also talk a lot about the value of love and friendship and all the different kinds of love that Aphrodite used to embrace in her realm. So yes, both Gaia and Aphrodite.
Would like to thank you so much. I don't know if I mean, I feel uneasy. I don't know, you were filming all day and you're tired. I mean, is there anything else that you want to close with? I mean, to inspire us?
Thank you. Well, I mean, only to say very practically, as I said, I'm so honoured that people have turned up even though I'm not there. Just thank you. And I just saw, did I just see Victoria Hislop sitting in the front row?
Yeah, you did, actually. Yeah, you did.
I thought it was, hello.
You see? For being...
Lovely to see you there.
Can we have the camera team also here?
I can see her on my screen, so I'm really sorry I'm not there with you. I suppose just a very practical thing to say is that after we've done the Seven Wonders series, we want to do a film on the hidden treasures of Greece. So this is for the Treasures of the World series. So we would love to, if any of you have any ideas or contacts or connections, then the organisers of the festival have all of my contact details. I would love to return to CHIOS to film for this series, for the Treasures of the World. So please.
Have you met Dimitra?
I met Dimitra.
If you have met Dimitra, you will return. There's no option.
It's exactly
Allow me
right.
to say there's no option. I mean, you're sure. No, I wanted you to. Have you seen? Yes, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tim. Yes. So you're having an interaction.
Hello, Bettany. Very good to see you.
Hello, Tim. Lovely to see you.
How's your day been?
Excellent. Excellent.
Have you been wearing sun cream?
Probably not enough. You can probably see. I think I was climbing up, talking about Artemis, and I think I got a bit burnt. But yes, a very, very good, very productive day. Thank you.
So I've been asked to ask you a final closing question, and I've just been put on the spot to ask this question. So it's going to come from the top of my head. But it would be, well, what is your richest moment from all of your career? Your long career in television and in writing, what's the place that you've been to that sticks with you most vividly?
Oh, I mean, it's very, very, very hard to choose one moment. I think it has to be when we're on an archaeological site or an archaeological dig and something really new and unexpected emerges in front of our eyes. And I suppose the two places I might talk about that I was lucky enough to be at recently. One was in Forney, the island of Forney, and we went snorkeling with the underwater sea from the Mythic Underwater Archaeology of Greece, and we weren't expecting to find anything, and saw an entire late Greek ship that was transporting whole dinner sets, whole dinner services, and it had obviously just gone straight down, so you could see these dinner services stacked up incredibly neatly as if they were on the shelves of a supermarket today. And I think, that I'll never forget. Luckily, there were no human remains. So we think actually nobody drowned. We think that the sailors managed to save themselves, but this was somebody's incredibly fancy dining service. I think that, and then also at the excavations, you'll know the incredible tomb of the Griffin warrior near Pylos on the Greek mainland. And again, we were there, and as we were filming, this exquisite little gold rattle for a child was discovered. And it was one of those moments where you wondered why the child had been given gold. Was it because, you know, it was something almost looked like a teething ring that they could also chew on, and there are these little tiny little tooth marks from probably a kind of 2-year-old baby who'd been given this ring to chew. And just in that moment, thousands of years collapsed. And as a mother, I felt very worried about this baby. What happened to it? Did it survive? You know, was this something that was supposed to be left in a grave? Did the gold bring her or him comfort? So I think probably just those moments when it's like the past is reaching out to you across the centuries. And of course, naturally, they both happened on Greek territory. So yeah, those are the current ones. And I'll let you know if there's anything new that emerges from the current filming. So I promise I'll keep a little a sort of exclusive for the CHIOS Festival next year. I'll film something exclusive that maybe we could show in this space in a year's time.
Bye, Bettany.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a